This is the first video documenting the process and progress of my Chinese painting class project. And the first thing I did to get myself organized was to create this to-do list. It has everything on here that I have to do to ensure the success of my project. I also created a flyer which is hanging in the classroom, and it has all the details of the project. I also made a brief PowerPoint to show at the class that is a short history of Chinese painting, which I will now reiterate to you in case you weren't at the class. The traditional style, according to the Sacramento Chinese Cultural Society, is called guohua, or national or native painting. They use animal hair brushes, and ink sticks were made of animal glue and pine soot, and they painted on canvas or silk when paper wasn't available yet. The ziyi method was the freehand method, which is more suggested style, more like an impressionist style where things aren't very detailed. In contrast, there's the gongbi method, which is meticulous and detailed. There are 3 subjects, including figure, landscape, and flower and bird paintings. Painting began in the Eastern Jin dynasty, and wars in the 3rd to 6th centuries allowed dividing dynasties to define their own styles. Figure painting began in the Tang dynasty, which was during the 7th to 10th centuries, because it was famous among nobles and court people. Each dynasty had an academy for art, which became later the Imperial Academy in the Song dynasty from the 10th to 12th century. The Yuan dynasty had the 4 great painters, and the Ming and Qing dynasties copied this, turning all of these great painters into the Shanghai School of Art. The impressionistic style landscapes began in the Song dynasty and used calligraphy techniques, and this inspired the poems that were written by the literati on the work, which were the educated people in society. The poems can be put on by anyone, the owners of the paintings and the artists, and so can the seals. I found this very good book called Chinese Painting Techniques. It's a little bit dated, published in 1968 by Alison Stilwell Cameron. Under the title Materials and Equipment, she has a very good quote about the supplies you would need to create a painting that's very close to the paintings that they created in the 3rd to 14th centuries in the Chinese dynasties. She says, quote, an inkstone, a stick of ink, a water well, 2 or 3 brushes, a chop, and chopped ink, unquote, are necessary to be painting in the traditional Chinese style. This is on page 23. I trust Cameron, even though the book is dated, because she has a very interesting background. She was born in Peking, which is present-day Beijing, and instead of going to college in the U.S., where her family is from, she stayed in Beijing and studied painting there. According to James Cahill, who wrote the foreword to the book and was the former curator of the Chinese art at Freer Gallery in Washington, D.C., she studied under the artists Yu Feian and Prince Puju, and the prince was actually from the imperial family. And so she has a lot of good credentials, and Cameron makes an interesting list, just because a lot of these things are not common anymore among painters. So let me explain what we will be using and to describe what they are. An inkstone and stick of ink go together. The ink stick, which traditionally now is made of pine soot still, but gum arabic, which is the material that holds together an oil pastel. It is ground into the inkstone, which is a small dish made of stone, and water is added so that the ink is of proper consistency. The water well is typically of white porcelain. We won't be using a porcelain water well, but we will have water available to create the value of ink that you want in any shade of gray. The more water you add to ink, the lighter it becomes. The water will also be useful for washing off the brush between coats. 2 or 3 brushes are typically needed, but here we will probably supply 1 since I'm borrowing them from my art room. They'll be of decent quality, probably not animal hair, since those are more expensive, although they will be a good quality, judging by the fact that our students use it. And a chop and chopping go together. A chop is the actual stamp or seal that is placed on the painting. Multiple chop seals are present on a painting normally because, in addition to the artist, every owner after them includes their own seal on the painting, and they also include their own calligraphy, which is also present. If you look hard, you can see different captions of poems written in Chinese ink. The chalk ink is normally red, as you can see on paintings. There are multiple red seals around the painting. Lastly, the three types of painting are landscape, figure, and flower and bird paintings. Landscape paintings can be freehand or meticulous, which is the jiayi or gongbi respectively. Although most times they are the jiayi or freehand style. They are normally done in black ink, and they have multiple chop seals and poems on them. The figure paintings are brightly colored, and they show nobility, and they have multiple seals and poems normally, although some do not. Flower and bird paintings are usually meticulous, gongbi, and they use color, and they also have multiple chop seals and poems on them. This is the last video documenting the process and progress of my Chinese painting class project. The class went very well. The landscapes, like the traditional landscapes, were in either ink or black acrylic, and the flower and bird paintings were in color like the traditional paintings and used acrylic, and all of them included a seal in the calligraphy, so they all mimic the essential attributes of Chinese painting while still capturing the artist's own artistic license. I filled out almost everything on my to-do list. The only things I have left are this video, and on the back is writing thank you letters to everyone who made this possible. And I also borrowed supplies from my art teacher, and I was very grateful that she was so generous as to donate these items so I could actually do my class. And I wanted to just say thank you to her. And the art is going to be donated to St. Peter's Children's Hospital, where a woman named Crystal has agreed to accept the art to put in the pediatric ward. Now I'm going to answer my essential questions. The first one is any aspect of visual art more poignant and recognizable than another? In Chinese painting, it's especially important to notice the calligraphy style that they use, which was adopted from their writing style. And this is what sets it apart from other European styles, because the way that we write differs. So the technique of jiayi is most likely the technique used in calligraphy painting, which is the more freehand style, which has influenced landscapes, which are a really important part of Chinese painting. And also, according to the Sacramento Cultural Foundation, the subjects are really important to Chinese painting, whereas the Europeans would most likely put Catholic religious figures or even landscapes of the European countryside. Chinese paintings were normally done in ink of more of the Chinese landscapes and also of their nobility and of flower and bird. The other one is any one aspect of a culture's visual art enough for one to distinguish it from any other cultures? Chinese and Japanese art is very similar, but Japan has a lot of figure paintings portraying the nobility, although Chinese painting has a wide variety of landscape and nature, where Japanese paintings don't normally, and this distinguishes it as a Chinese painting style rather than another Asian cultures. And also, the Chinese culture um, is unique in that it has the seal and calligraphy, the poem, so that you can see from the poem that it is Chinese art because the characters differ slightly from Japanese to Chinese.